struggle in the French Republic then of a colony of what is now Haiti. She had children for a French naval officer, and she was concerned with the impending civil war, and so she put them on a schooner bound for Cuba. But they came here to the Bahamas. One of them was Stephen Dillard. And Stephen Dillard became the first man of color to be elected to Parliament. And and I think if one wanted to look at the times, he would have been what we call a high yellow, marginally white man. When he was elected to Parliament, the establishment at the time didn't allow him to serve. He ran again, was elected, and served for 30 consecutive years. His son became the first man of color to be a High Court judge. The establishment did not allow him to be confirmed, so he left and went to Belize. And so this now has some amazing implications to the ethos of our country and what makes up our country when we talk about the nations. The nations impacted the country positively and in an exemplary way down through the centuries. When I first became Prime Minister and went to the first Prime Minister's meeting, and I was doing research, I found that there was a booklet written by two professors from the University of the West Indies. One, a Professor Persaud, the next one, a Dr. Davenport, who argued, when we talk about the Bahamas and its connection with the region, that the Bahamas had done more to accommodate Caribbean nationals than any other single Caribbean country. Now, you think about that. We never paused long enough to look at our journey, to write about it, and to see what has happened and where the people came from who made up the Bahamas. So, Peter, when I started to look at the Christies, there obviously is a connection between you and Christie, and happily for me, Bill Holowesco, now deceased, decided to experiment for me and take me back to the first Christie coming to the Bahamas. And you know, he jokingly said, "Don't show this to Peter." But it was interesting to see when we came and how we became who we are. You had some interesting Christies in your lineage, particularly your dad, who had a reputation that enabled him during the Burma Road riots to be exempted by the people of color when they moved to Bay Street, because he ranked in their esteem. But this is, I'm talking some old stories about history, because there is a really compelling urgency for us to be able to show a full picture of our country. And I threw out some information on it so that we could all have a sense of the meaning of the people who house this building and who enabled there to be some point in time when we are able to applaud those of you that make a commitment to raising up the history of our country. Because this will be understood in a very meaningful way by children, this will give children an opportunity to see and feel their history. Secondly, to the artists amongst us, it will titillate their imagination so as to enable them to have a guide to write, I suppose, to produce plays. When I was in Haiti for the 200th anniversary as Prime Minister, I saw a few American actors together with Haitian actors in the theater there, acting out the history of Haiti as the oldest black republic. I went into a museum and I saw where they were claiming to have, and I must be careful about this because it's a sovereign country, but they were showing what could have been, what they claimed to be the anchor of one of Columbus's ships, the Pinto. It might have been the Nina. But the fact of the matter is, when I heard that the first Bush Rogers might be buried up there in East Hill Yard next to the post office, I wonder what took us so long to say this is the spot that he's buried, so that we could bring some slip to the location. But of course, I'm a Philistine and not a historian, and there is a purpose to it. I say these things to conclude in a way to congratulate you in this way. That our country, men and women, will feel a great sense of pride as more and more, on an increasing basis, we make them familiar with the history of our country. That we get to understand rural Cayans. In my first term, we bought the Clifton Estate. And I had hoped by now we would have done more to actualize the meaning of that estate as representing the three places, or the one place where three civilizations of our country passed through. The Lucayan Indians, the Loyalists, and the Africans, slaves or liberated. And where Thomas Wiley, the owner of the estate, was an incredible personality who had, for the first time, slaves defending a slave owner when they came to arrest him, as Speaker of the House of Assembly. And where I believe, Gail, and I'm sure, and I want to conclude this, I believe the foreman of the Wiley estate was a fellow by the name of Thomas Morse at one stage. I don't know if it's called Henry Morse. I don't know if the same Henry Morse who turned up the owner of a plantation in Crooked Island. Where the Historical Society enabled me, through the story of Kate Moss, Poor Black Kate, a story that was used by the abolitionists in England in their fight against slavery to abolish slavery. And where I'm told the National Trust now possesses the estate or the property upon which the estate in Crooked Island was built. But where for the first time in the history of the Bahamas, slave owners were prosecuted and as a misdemeanor because Kate was put into the stockade. Her father was made to whip her. This is the account of the Historical Society, an essay that has come out of the Historical Society. They put pepper in her eyes to keep her in a non-sleep position. She died. They were prosecuted. There was a revolt, not a revolt, a lot of agitation in the colony as to why they were prosecuted. Our justice system then demonstrated historically. They had a review, I guess, which would be a form of appeal, and it was confirmed, the sentence